Every evening at 6:30, the Rottweiler made a sound. Always the same sound, always the same time. The baby laughed every single time. Laura thought it was sweet. Then she recorded it. And when she heard what she had recorded, she had to sit down on the floor and couldn't get up for a long time. Before you watch, remember to like and subscribe so you don't miss another touching story like this one. And write in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is there. He's doing it again. Laura was standing in the kitchen doorway, her phone in her hand, her voice careful in the way it had been careful for 7 months. Bruno was in the living room. He was sitting in front of the door, the front door, the one David used to come through every evening at 6:30. Bruno sat there every evening at 6:30. He had done it every evening for 7 months. Laura had stopped trying to understand it after the 3rd week. Some things she had decided you just learned to live alongside. Bruno was a Rottweiler. 110 pounds of black and tan muscle. A face that had always looked serious even as a puppy. Eyes that David used to say could see straight through a person to whatever they were actually thinking. David had gotten him 4 years ago. He had spent 3 weeks researching breeds, reading forums, visiting shelters, before driving 2 hours to a breeder in Pennsylvania and coming home with an 8-week-old puppy that he'd named Bruno before they'd even pulled out of the driveway. Bruno, Laura had said. Really? He looks like a Bruno, David had said. She had looked at the puppy. The puppy had looked at her. She had to admit he looked like a Bruno. David had died 7 months ago, a Tuesday in October, a wet road, a truck that came through a red light at an intersection David had driven through 1,000 times. Laura had been 6 months pregnant. She had gotten through the funeral, the paperwork, the particular bureaucratic cruelty of death, and then she had come home to an empty house and a Rottweiler who didn't understand why the person he had been waiting for wasn't coming back. The first weeks had been the hardest. Bruno wouldn't eat for 3 days. He lay in the hallway outside the bedroom door every night, his chin on his paws, his eyes open in the dark. She had started sleeping with the bedroom door open just so he could see her. She wasn't sure which of them it was for. She hadn't had the heart to move him from his spot by the door. She still didn't. Lily was 4 months old now. Blonde, solid, her father's eyes in a face that still surprised Laura sometimes with how much it looked like his. She wore a purple onesie that was slightly too big in the shoulders. She had learned to laugh 3 weeks ago. A real laugh, full and sudden, the kind that made the whole room feel different. She laughed at almost nothing. Ceiling fans, shadows, the particular way light moved across the wall in the afternoon. And Bruno. Every evening at 6:30, Bruno made his sound. It wasn't a bark, it wasn't quite a growl. Something in between. Low, sustained, directed at the front door, the way he had always greeted David when he heard the key in the lock. And every evening at 6:30, Lily laughed. Not a small laugh. A full one, the real one. The one that made the room feel different. Laura had noticed it the first time on a Tuesday. Lily was in her bouncer in the living room, Bruno was at the door, the sound happened, and Lily's face transformed into that laugh like something had been switched on. She had told herself it was coincidence. The second time she had watched more carefully. The third time she had felt something move through her that she didn't have a name for. By the end of the 2nd week, she had started positioning Lily's bouncer in the living room every evening before 6:30. She noticed other things too. Bruno always turned his head slightly left before making the sound. The direction of the driveway, the direction David's car used to come from. Lily always laughed before the sound finished. Like she was anticipating it, like she knew it was coming. She didn't tell anyone. She wasn't sure what she would say. Laura's sister Rachel came to visit on a Thursday. She sat on the couch with Lily in her lap, talking about something Laura was only half listening to when 6:30 arrived and Bruno made his sound. Lily laughed. Rachel looked at Lily, then at Bruno, then at Laura. "That's," she started. "I know," Laura said. "How long has he been—" "Since she learned to laugh." Rachel was quiet for a moment. "And he always does it at the same time?" "Every evening, 6:30. He sits at the door and—" Laura stopped. She looked at Bruno. Bruno was looking at the door. "David used to come home at 6:30, Laura said. Rachel didn't say anything. She held Lily a little tighter. That night after Rachel left, Laura's phone buzzed. A message from Rachel. "Laura, I love Bruno, but that sound every night isn't normal. You should talk to someone, a trainer, or maybe it's too much for you right now." Laura read it twice. She didn't reply. She gave herself until Friday. If she still didn't understand by Friday, she would call someone. Friday came. She didn't call. She waited one more week. That night, Laura stood in the living room for a long time. She looked at Bruno's spot by the door, at the exact position he always took, slightly to the left of the mat, facing the door at the angle that would let him see whoever came through it immediately. The angle David had trained him to sit at, the greeting position. She took out her phone. She recorded Bruno making his sound. She listened to it 3 times. Then she did something she hadn't done in 7 months. She opened the video folder on her phone, found a video from 18 months ago. David in the kitchen talking to Bruno, that particular low voice he used with the dog. Lower than his normal voice, warmer. The voice that was just for Bruno and for her and for the particular quiet of their home. She held the phone close to the speaker. She listened. She played Bruno's recording again, then David's. She sat down on the floor. She didn't get up for a long time. The next morning, she called Dr. Holt. He had been their vet since Bruno was a puppy. Calm, methodical, the kind of man who measured his words carefully and didn't offer more than he could support. She played him both recordings over the phone. He was quiet for a moment. "Come in," he said. "Bring both recordings." Dr. Holt listened to the recordings in his office with the kind of attention that made the room feel still. He played them twice. He looked at his notes. "Dogs develop specific vocalizations for specific people," he said. "Particularly dogs with strong attachment bonds. Over 4 years, Bruno would have internalized the precise acoustic qualities of David's voice, the frequency, the rhythm, the pattern." He paused. "What you're hearing is Bruno's version of David's greeting, not an imitation. Something closer to an echo. A habit so deep it became involuntary." Laura couldn't speak. "And the baby?" she asked. Dr. Holt looked at his notes again. "There's research on fetal auditory memory," he said carefully. "Fetuses begin responding to external sounds from around 24 weeks. Repeated sounds, voices, music, specific frequencies, create neural pathways that persist after birth." He paused. "You were 6 months pregnant when David died." Laura felt the room tilt. "For 3 months before he died," Dr. Holt continued quietly, "Lily heard that sound every evening, that specific frequency, associated with whatever a fetus associates sound with. Safety, regularity, the particular warmth of a home at the end of the day." He looked at her. "She isn't laughing at a growl," he said. "She's responding to something she recognizes." Laura put her hand flat on the desk. She thought about 7 months of Bruno at the door at 6:30, about a baby who laughed with her whole body at a sound that made no sense, about a frequency that had traveled through water and tissue and the wall of a world not yet entered. About a father who had never met his daughter, who had, without knowing it, left something for her anyway. She drove home slowly. She went to the living room. It was 6:24. She picked up Lily and sat on the floor beside Bruno. Bruno looked at her, those dark eyes, that serious face. At 6:30 exactly, he turned to the door and made his sound, low, sustained, warm in a way Laura had never let herself hear before. Lily's face transformed, that laugh, full and sudden, the one that made the room feel different. Laura pressed her face into Bruno's neck. He leaned into her, just slightly, just enough. Lily reached out and grabbed a fistful of his fur, still laughing. Then she turned her head toward the door, like she was waiting for someone to walk through it. Laura closed her eyes. "He would have loved you so much," she whispered. She wasn't sure who she was talking to. Maybe both of them. Did this story touch your heart? If yes, write yes in the comments, like this video, and subscribe to our channel. Do you believe babies can recognize voices they heard before they were born, yes or no? Let us know below. If you like the story, subscribe to this channel and leave a like. Thanks so much for listening. See you in the next video. Have a great day.